Welcome everyone. We start the meeting from saying our names around. I'm Katarina.
Michelle.
Felicity.
Zelen.
Dave.
Michael. Hema.
John. Adrian. Ben.
Terry.
As usual, same old, same old, same old. Can't be any other way. What they call non-duality. Non-duality means not two, one without a second, they try to describe it. Even the idea of one implies there could be other. So if you understand that and fully grasp that, you realise there's no seeker, nothing to seek, no doer, nothing to do, no occurrences, nothing to occur, but it all seemingly happens, and it continues to seemingly happen. But it's all, as they say, Maya, illusion, appearance. And you see this, or recognise this when you dream of a night. When you dream of a night, you can all sorts of things can be going on in that dream. You can be anywhere at all in that dream, wherever it's doing all sorts of activities and things like that. When you wake up, what happened to it all? Where did it all go? It disappeared. Now the thing is, but this pattern through which the dream experienced through, or expressed through, seemingly still appears to be there. And that's why we don't recognise that this is the waking dream also. And this so-called dreaming character doesn't disappear. But the dream character in this dream is an expression also. You and I are seemingly more substantial, more solid, and we have the capacity or ability to reason. But all these forms and images that appeared in the dream at night are like, if you take this away and take it, the whole dream, it's all appearing in this space like emptiness, the silence and the stillness. It's all the whole manifestation. And it's just a smaller version of it, this human pattern, shapes and forms. So that's what was pointed to, that we are the one essence appearing, patterning, shaping, forming, expressing and experiencing as everything. But see what's happened there? Yeah.
Maybe we should start the meeting later.
Huh?
Maybe we should start later. It's always happening.
Yeah, then they come later even again, then. You might need a chair or two.
There's one chair here in the corner, that one.
What's your name?
Janet.
Where'd you hear about this?
I've heard from a few people. Trish Rossi, and yesterday Mick's here.
We went to the dreamed character, weren't we, or something like that? I forget now. That dream character in the dream doesn't go, or if it expects anything, it doesn't expect, takes it as it comes, doesn't it? Because you don't know which way that dream's going to turn. You're going to be fearful and terrified and anxious and angry and all sorts of things in the dream. Just the same as this one. But the thing is, we've taken on that idea, and this is what the dream character does, it's taken on the idea that we are a separate entity, an individual, a person, and we see the sense of separation is all around us. Look out there in nature, the trees, the flowers, the sky, the space, the stars, the planets, and everything in this room is appearingly separate. They express it in the ancient texts as one essence appearing, patterning, shaping, forming, and expressing as everything. And then they put the Mahavaku, or the great mantra, on that. I am that, meaning that thou art that. Everything is that, which innately you already sense in your language. They don't realise what you're saying half the time, because you say, that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower. We know everything is that. We've got the chair, the carpet, the tree and the flower. We take it to be something separate, and we believe it is separate. But it's not seeing that the essence of it is that, and that alone. So you see why the search becomes the problem. As soon as we've got this search on, we've split it up for a start off into many dualistic aspects. And the main one is spirit and matter. Spirit is essence and matter is solidified spirit, taking them to be two separate things. But it's all the one. It can't be anything other than one, though it appears in all its diverse shapes and forms and patterns. But no matter how it appears, it's still only that, and that is all there is. And that is all there will ever be, or whatever was. Only that. And that's what we need to investigate, because while we think we are this individual, this person, what are we doing? We've got the taste that there's something a little bit more to life than what we've experienced and expressing, and there's been scriptures and traditions written about it, and we get a taste and a bit of a resonation with some of that, and we think we've got to become more advanced. Not realising that being can never ever be becoming. And is there anyone who is not being right now? You've got to realise simply, factually, that I am being. I can't negate that beingness. And that's all that the Hindus call it, Sat, Chit and Anda, Nama Rupa, the five factors. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, and Anda is loving to be. And the Nama Rupa, the name and the form, are Maya, they're illusion. They tell us that. Just the same as all this manifestation is Maya or illusion. And I'll tell you, it's a phenomenal manifestation. What's your dictionary definition of phenomena? It's that which appears to be. Simply all that. And you and I and everybody else are the content, the phenomenal content of this manifestation, the same as the trees, the flowers and everything else is the content. Now, can you separate anything from the totality? Through the capacity of reasoning, through this mind stuff, we think, which is a vibration of energy, which is always dividing everything. Look at the way your thinking happens. You're not thinking in the past, which is memory, or in the future, which is anticipation and imagination, or it's always vibrating somewhere within that range. Look at the way thoughts pattern, shape and form. It's either good or bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative. Watch your mind and see if it functions any other way. Have a look at it, investigate. Get the taste of how this functioning is happening. It's always vibrating in the interrelated opposites. And the boundary we're putting on that opposites are word, or the label. good, bad, pleasant and painful. They're words. I like it, I don't like it. It's fearful or it's joyful. And that's the sense of separation we're continually reinforcing by going into these erroneous, mentally constructed beliefs. That's all a concept is a mental construct. And time is brought into it, past, present and future. And with time comes beginning and end. And don't the ancients tell us, or the scriptures tell us, it's eternal. And what is eternity? Eternity is not bound by any concept of time. It's beginningless, it's endless, it's timeless, it's spaceless. It's bodiless, mindless. It's beyond all the whens, wheres, hows, whys and what fors. In other words, it just is, which is a word which we use to try and describe it. And what is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Just as it is, in this ever-present freshness and newness. If it's timeless, it must be ever fresh, which the Buddhists pointed out that way. They say it's ever fresh, non-conceptual, without any concepts on it, ever fresh. Presence awareness. Anyone who's not aware right now, you're not unaware, so you must be aware. Who is not? Anyone who is not present right now. Your past or your future or the actuality, what is right now, are you this presence? Presence awareness, that is describing you right now. Just this, nothing else. So you see, in that description points out you are that. In the Sat Chit Ananda points out you are anyone who's not existing right now, anyone who is not conscious right now, anyone who is not happy to be right now. But we say, oh, this is not good enough. Because we believe we are this persona, this individual, this separate entity, we've got to become something. And where, how, why, or what can you become outside of the mind? You realise without that mind you can't go anywhere. It's still this ever-freshness, ever-presence. And without the mind, what concept can you have without the mind? It's non-conceptual. So it's still non-conceptual whether the concepts are going on or not, if you understand what we're pointing to. It's always been the one, always will be the one. And I point that out by saying it's not a one-ended stick. Each stick's got two ends to it. The thin end we don't like, and we mightn't like, and the thick end we want more of. It's good. We can use other metaphors to point it out like that. But whichever end is that, the good end or the thick end or the thin end, it's still only the one stick. So no matter what's going on in this mind and these activities, which are always vibrating in the interrelated opposites, it's still the one essence. And this Nisargadatta points out, you are dreaming a dream. He calls it, pointing out, you're dreaming a dream you call the world. And he says, stop looking for ways out. We're trying to get out of this dream. He says, because the dream's not your concern. Your concern is when you take delivery of it and love one part of it and not the other. You've separated, divided it, and trying to fix it from one end and get to the other end, which doesn't happen. He says, either love all of it right now or none of it. Don't take its dance anywhere in it at all. It doesn't matter whether you're loving all of it or you pushed it all out, loving none of it. And he says the rest will be taken care of for you by the same life essence that brought you into existence, that is living you, breathing you, and beating your heart right now. It's growing you. Don't you realise it's growing you from two microscopic particles called a sperm and an ovum in your father and your mother, suffused with an innate intelligence, which doubled, redoubled, and continued to double and formed the little embryo and formed the little fetus. And it's what you are to this day. It's still growing you. And what have you done about that growing? Done all sorts of things about thinking we're going to improve it or may try and living and belief in it, but actually all the doing that's happened has happened spontaneously also. But you see what's put us in bondage, What's the boundaries we put upon us? What's made it fearful? What's made it unhappy? What's made it depressed, or good, or bad? Isn't it the concepts? Or the words? It tells you in the Bible, in the beginning it was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. That's all that God was, is another word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And that's right. Everything you label out there is by the Word, isn't it? There was nothing that was made without the Word. And this is the Word that's made flesh and dwelling amongst us right now. The Word, the vibration. Now the Word is not the enemy. It can be very useful, because if you didn't use words and ideas, concepts and images, you couldn't have built this house, made the plans and all the rest, and all the other inventions and all the things that we've gone along in life have done. Have been useful. But it's also, because it's a vibration, it's self-destructive. It's the word that tells me I'm fearful, or I'm anxious, or I'm unhappy, I'm not good enough. I can't do this and can't do that, and now people are out to get me, I'm introverted. And the worst, when we put ourselves, well, when things are happening, we can't do anything about it. Well, after all, I'm only human. And have a look at that. We call ourselves human beings. And if you believe in the God, you'll call the God the supreme being. What happens if you take the label supreme off and take the label human off? What have you got left? You can't negate the beingness, but you can negate the label. So you can't negate that beingness. Without that word human or supreme, the beingness is not separated. It's just pure being. And have a look at this and see, when you take the label off everything in this room, what's left? There is just beingness in this room. The space is being, it's being space. The air is being, you can't see it. The worlds are being, the people in it are being. Everything is being. And being is something that's occurring right in this immediacy. And it's spontaneous. It's not time-bound. It hasn't got any beginning. Being doesn't begin, and it doesn't end. Being is eternal. It's beginningless and endless. An awareness of that beingness, recognizing the awareness of it, is the love of being, is the joyousness. They call it bliss, in other words. A sense of wellness, a sense of beingness, a sense of happiness, of joyousness. And then the Mahavaka, the great mantra, comes into place. I am that. I am that essence. I'm not this person, which comes from persona, the mask, a word we've learnt, that's been modified over the ages from persona, the mask, into the believed in separate entity, the individual, the person. And we've taken ourselves to be this person, which means the mask. We put this mask, what's the mask we've got on ourselves? It's the mask of concepts. I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fellow. I'm not so good. People don't like me. I'm full of shit, or whatever belief they've got. And whatever belief I've got about myself is just a conceptual image that forms the person. The person's persona is formed of concepts, mental images. And the Sagata tells you also that nothing can trouble you. Nothing at all can trouble you but your own imagination. Break that word imagination. We've broken ourselves, we were troubled by the word imagination. Break that word to image in, or imagine. Image in means we're creating mental images, focusing on the images, taking them to be real, and on board is something solid and substantial. Look at that mirror at the end of the room. What do you see in it? Don't you see reflections in it? Or, another term to put those reflections, images in the mirror. Now you can't say those images are not there. But go up to that mirror and try and grab an image out of it. What will you grab? You'll only grab the glass. You won't grab the image. So it's not there. There's nothing in the mirror at all, but it appears to be. It's a phenomenal image in the mirror. And that's the same with this. When you try to grab this persona that you think you are, can you? Oh, it's in here, it's up there, it's out there, somewhere else. It's seemingly solid and substantial. When you really look into it, what can you grab? What can you grasp? There's nothing there solid or substantial that you can fixate on. This is what we call the bondage of self. And what does bondage mean? It means we're tied up in it, which we are. We've tied ourselves up with the concepts, the ideas, the images and the words. I'm Bob. I'm unhappy or I'm depressed. My parents told me I'm a good or I'm bad or I'm fearful. People don't like me. All imagined. All made up of concepts, words. What happens if I ask myself what is wrong with right now if I don't think about it? To do that you need to pause the thought for a moment or step back from the mind or disregard it or don't cling to it different ways. Not anything that the persona can do, but it's just a matter of letting go or relaxing, whatever. What can you say without a thought? Well, look at that right now and ask yourself, what can I say without a thought? What are you got to do? You've got to try and look without conceptualising or making any words. What's there then? Isn't there just a naked seeing, a naked hearing, a naked tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking might come up in it, and things like that, feelings and all the rest of it. But it's non-conceptual, there's nothing there but the seeing, the hearing, the tasting, the touching, the smelling, the breathing, the heart beating. There's all functioning still going on. But it's just pure functioning, just pure being until we put the concepts on that separate it. And non-duality, again, as I start off with, is non-conceptual, ever-fresh presence awareness, or totality. It's omnipresence, total presence, omnipotence, total power, not the mind power, not the thought power, not the higher power, not the God power, or the intellectual power. It's the total power or intelligence, energy, or whatever you like to call it, that's functioning, this cosmos, all naturally, effortlessly, and constantly, eternally. We've all taken on the concepts of we're separate entities, individuals. It comes about when we learnt the word, and you didn't learn any words. Look at that and realise, what words were you born with? Or can you remember your birth? You go into that, you investigate that, you see you can't remember your birth. You were told you can't do existed such a date, but you actually yourself, you can't remember. You don't remember anything. When was your first memories? Aren't they somewhere around the age of 2 or 2.5? Might be a bit before, a bit later, when you began to learn words. Your parents fussing around you, told your little boy, your little girl, good so-and-so, and they're talking amongst themselves, and you learnt words like I or me. The capacity of reasoning developed in you at that stage. Before that, there's no reasoning. You're just seeing, hearing, you're just pure, total functioning. The capacity of reasoning, which is a very useful capacity. This room was an idea in somebody's mind once, the television, the computer, through the capacity of reasoning, have all been developed. It's all come about through that capacity of reasoning. For the little child, for the first couple of years of your life, what reasoning is happening there? He's seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, hungry or cry, happy or laugh, reach out in curiosity and trying to grab something or touch something. But he hasn't got any labels or words to differentiate it. He learns the hard way. He puts on something hand on it, something hot, it'll burn, and something do. But with this capacity of reasoning, he learnt words. Now realise that. That's when you and I and everybody else first started acquiring words. And you must realise if I acquired words, then every word I've ever acquired or picked up or learnt has been picked up along the way. If I'm not born with it, it's not something that's natural to me. It's something that's acquired. And I'm still learning words to this day. There's a dictionary there full of words that I don't understand what they mean. Some of the words I'm saying here I don't fully understand. I'm not the best educated person in the world. It doesn't matter. But you've got to understand that we've picked up all these words along the way and understand these words we use are not the thing. The word is not the thing. Like they say, the map is not the territory. You've got a signpost saying Burke Road and White Horse Road. You're not at Burke Road and White Horse Road, but it's a good pointer. It'll point to the way to go, and that's all words are good pointers. Point you in the direction you need to look and investigate. The word's not the thing. Take the word water. Can you wash in the word? Can you swim in the word? Can you drink in the word? Can you drown in the word? You can't. You can't do anything with the word at all. The word fire. Does it burn your mouth if you speak at it? Is it hot, the word fire? Can you cook with it? Can you heat yourself? Can you warm yourself with it? You can't, not with the word. What's this word I or me? I'm Bob, the Australian, and all the rest of all words with labels we put on it. Are you that? Are you any of those words you put upon yourself? Oh, I'm introverted. Oh, I'm unhappy. Oh, I'm depressed. Are you? While the energy of belief goes into it, and you put the sensations into it from that energy of belief, it's a fresh and new, ever fresh and new situation we're putting the label or the old label on it attaching to, and they're causing the pain, the hurt, and all the anxiety and stress that goes on with it. Something that's not the actuality. The word's not the actuality. And we learn words. And that's, well, I learned words like I and me, I am Bob the Australian. And those words, and conceptual image that those words form, that's what I take myself to be. A conceptual image. And that becomes the reference point. Now I relate everything to this mental image. To me, Bob. Whether I like it or don't like it, is it good if I heard it? Is it affecting me in any way? The reference point, another word for reference point, is the self-centre. We've formed a conceptual centre or an image in this pattern somewhere that we relate to, or has been put in the last few hundred years, ego. Reference point, self-centre and ego. And everybody's on about this ego. It is the big problem, ego. A reference point. Everything comes relative to this ego. And relativity or relationship is duality. To be related, there must be something other than this. Is relativity, duality. And what are we talking about? Non-duality. We're pointing out there is absolutely no duality in non-duality. That's what the ancients tell us. It's written in the scripture, the few who have understood it and recognised it, and great religions have formed around them. And they've added all these sets of rules and regulations on it, and see them in their purity. They've added all sorts of things onto them and give you some big problem. You've got to pray, you've got to meditate, you've got to do all this to acquire or get somewhere. Because the saints, sages and seers that pointed it out in this truthfulness, but the people that follow them set themselves up as saints, sages, saviours and seers, and say you've got to become like me or better than me or whatever. And put all these trips on them And nobody ever recognises or gets to it until something moves them to look a little bit further. And the erroneous beliefs they've taken on board and continually reinforce. And that's what we've happened. Instead of seeing what the saints, sages, saviours and seers told us and listening to the message, we've set the messenger up and worshipped the messenger as a saint, as a saviour, as a sage, as a seer. And the message is lost sight of. So take hold of the message right here, right now, already and ever fresh. It's not something that's taken on later on, because there is no later on. This is the only time you can ever take it. Right now, you are that. I am that reality. I am existent. I am conscious right now. I'm not unaware, so I must be aware right now. I am not this pattern, shape and form I believe in. I am the essence that enabled that pattern, shape and form to formulate and put all the organs, the nerves and sinews into it and enable it to experience and express the way it does in it, so it can do that. But this pattern, shape and form, like everything else in this manifestation, is transient. It's constantly changing. And you mightn't believe that. You might believe this is the same. You might think this is the same body you walked into this room with. But it's not. There are thousands of cells dying in it right now. Not one or two, but thousands of them. And being replaced. And each cell that is replacing it is suffused with an innate intelligence, like the first two cells that formulated it. The sperm and the ovum were suffused with that innate intelligence and the energy of knowing. So it's constantly changing. But what do? We fixate on a mental concept which is now dead and gone, not a bit of use to us, might be useful as a memory to bring in and work something out in the moment, but it's no good as the dead image. We're relating to a dead image constantly, trying to keep up with life, which is constantly changing. That's why we get left behind. We can never keep up with this immediacy until you let go of the past and all it holds on to and remain firmly, or not a matter of remaining firmly, you can't get away from it in this moment, in this immediacy, and let that life express and do what it needs to do. Each and every moment is a fresh and new expression of that. So, and that's what happens here. There's a sort of a seeming wonderment or a curiosity, what's going to unfold next? I'm not too concerned in what's gone. There can be many painful memories in that which are getting less and less as time goes on. They're getting forgotten as the memories breaking down also. Forgetting. But this is the actuality. This is the only time that livingness can happen. If we're not utilising it fully, we've got it full up of old ideas, old images, past events and experiences, past pains and hurts and fears. We're wasting it. Be totally with it. As the Buddhists tell you, one of their sayings is be utterly awake, totally awake, with the five senses wide open. And that's what's going on with us right now. The hearing is there, the seeing is there, the tasting is there, the touching is there, the smelling is there, the thinking. All those sensations are happening right now. But what have we done? We've fixated on one, and even though the others are happening in the background, we're missing out on them because we're attached to the one to the exclusion, practical exclusion of the others. But it says, be utterly awake with the five senses wide open and be utterly open. So it says, be open to them all with unfixated awareness. And if you're not fixating on the one, you can flit to the others. What that's right now, You're listening to this voice, or you might be listening, but you'll hear a car go by, you'll see that cat walk around the room, you'll notice the movement in it, and what other hearing is going on, the feeling, the sensations attached to it, they're all going on in the same immediacy. But you're trying to work out what's being said here. If you are, you're probably gone to sleep, couldn't care less. You'll be focused on that particular one, trying to grasp it with the concept. And that's what Nisargadatta says. We try to grasp it with the concept and we fail. And he says you're bound to fail. Because it's non-conceptual awareness. So the conceptualizing will still go on. But the difference is you'll know the truth of it. And that's the old scriptural saying, know the truth. And the truth will set you free. When you know the truth, you can't put the energy of belief into the belief again. And the belief is no longer the actual for you. And you're free of the belief. And you look at the dictionary definition of belief. It's an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. Put your beliefs to that test. You can do that. And if it's false, it will not stand up to investigation, because the false, when you start looking at it, cannot stand up to investigate. If it's a fact, you can't get out of it in any way, shape or form, because it's the actuality. Just the same as the actuality you are being right now. And you're not noticing that half the time. You say, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, or a load of this, and blah, blah, blah. I've got to become enlightened, or blah, 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 but some other concepts are right there. But you are being, you are knowing, and you are loving to be. You can't negate that. Take hold of it. Take hold of it. Recognise it. Recognise it as what you actually are. And what happens when this seeming life essence goes out of this body? You've got a corpse. There's no longer the life energy vibrating, pattern shaping, forming and expressing through it. But it is in a certain way, because it's formed enzymes, microbes, which are starting to rot the body. There's still life forms that are varying. So life is continually living on life. Out of life, more life comes. But you see, when that body's a corpse, it's got the eyes, it's got the ears, it's got the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all the organs are there. But you can't utilise those organs anymore, because what's missing? The life energy. That's what's missing. And so that body's not a bit of good without that life essence. And a good analogy is your computer. You're all flying with computers and all the rest of it all the time. All that information, you've got some wonderful and wondrous information in that computer. Punch those keys, run that mouse over it, do everything you can with it without the power turned on. What good is it to you? So what is it? Is it the information that's in it? Or is it the power that enables that information to be utilised through whatever pattern, shape and form it is? Whether it's a computer, a phone, or your body, or your mind, or a star, or a planet, or the earth, or any other way. It's that life. And as Nisargadatta put it, there is only life. That's all there is. You and I are life. He says there's nobody who lives a life. Nobody, no mind, no person who lives a life. And he went on a little bit further and said that life lives on life, or out of life. It's out of life that more life comes. And life lives on life. Because isn't this life we're living right now, we come out of the food essence? So life is continually living that life. And isn't that what the Christ told you a couple of thousand years ago when he says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. People thought he was talking about himself. So they went, well, yeah, he's the way, truth and life. He wasn't. He was talking about that sense of presence the knowing that you are, which translates your mind and my mind and every other mind as the thought I am. But it's not the thought. It's that life that's that enable that thought to come out. I am. That is the way. That is the truth. That is the life. That sense of presence, in other words, without even the label I am. I am. And he was not aware of being present right now, that sense of presence within you. And it's that life that's enabled that sense of presence to pattern, shape and form and experience and express. You are that. Don't forget that. So get into it. That's all I'll do. I'll talk for a while. I might come up with something later. I don't know. Hey, Jane. Hey. You're free to say what you want to say, think what you want to think, do what you want to do it what you want to do it. If you start, try and keep it on the non-dual pattern if you can. Because you can go out here and all the bullshit anywhere else you like, you know.
I remember Bob once said, and I think that was helpful, if you would actually start with what you heard, because what he says, if you heard something that he said, you will put it in your own language, and it will be that slight shift that can actually help someone else to resonate with it. So if there is anything throughout his spiel that you actually really heard, you could just repeat it in your own words, and somebody else may hear it again. It's a good way to start. Otherwise, we're just going to sit in silence.
One thing that I heard,
Speak up.
one thing that I heard, I guess, and I'm still, there's an element of fear that jumps in as well that grips me, hearing the message. There's an element of fear that jumps in, that grips me when I hear the message, like I need to protect myself. But there's also the understanding that whatever it is perfect anyway, so I'm gripping on with fear, but I understand that's part of it as well. So I can't understand that I'm going to fall back into it. So it seems like that's it as well. So that's part of it. And I've got to let go of trying to escape, wanting something to be different.
Beautiful, yeah.
See, we've had this sensation when we were trying to find words, was fear. Sensation come up, we didn't understand or didn't know, or it hurt or whatever, we labelled it fear. We're bringing the association up ever since and trying to avoid these sensations, this thing we call fear. Now we've hung on to it for so long, the thought of letting it go and getting it out of the mind, what are we going to do? Where am I going to, how am I going to be without it? It's very hard to see and let go of it. Not hard to see, but to let go of it. It's the last thing that will go in you. But it needs to be looked at and see that when you realise there is nothing there, that's any solidity, any substance or anything at all that there is to let go of. Like the fellow that's walking through staggering through a cemetery one night on his way home, and there's an open grave there and he falls into it. He grabs the top of it as he's going down and he's hanging there, shit, what am I going to do here, and worrying all night. In the morning he wakes up, the sun comes over the horizon, his feet are that far off the hang on all night, frightened to let go. But there was nowhere to fall from. Many other metaphors we use to point that out. But we've hung on to it and clung to it, but we've tried to protect it for so long, we're fearful of letting it go. But there's a old saying too, do the things you fear, and the death of fear is certain. And that's a fact.
And really not even necessary to let go of the fear. It's just to notice it as another pattern in consciousness.
Yeah.
Like wanting to protect yourself or wanting to not lose something. It's a beautiful affirmation of love for life. So just seeing it as a passing cloud, then as you are noticing it as a content, you already noticing it from its opposite. So you are already consciousness, being aware of the content. And as you said, yes, it is important not to want anything different than what is. So if the fear appears, the freedom is when you don't want it to go, when you are totally okay, whether it is there or it is not. That's the freedom. And of course, it's fear only if you call it fear. Otherwise, it's just rushing energy.
Like false evidence appearing real.
Mm.
I like that one.
Yeah.
The acronym for fear. False evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Because once you know you're not Santa Claus, yeah, so to speak. I love that analogy. Yeah.
Mm. Also, if you reframe it, you could call it excitement.
There are many appearances out there in the manifestation. We investigated and seen the falseness of the blue sea, the water, the blue sky. There's no blueness in the sky if you get up in a plane, 30,000 feet. The water in the mirage, the snake in the rope, as they talk about. All sorts of, the rainbow, all these things when you investigate them, they fall apart under the investigation. Investigate the concepts and images you've got about yourself. That's the important one. Who am I? What am I? Am I this person? See if it's true. Am I the thought I think? Or am I the thinking? Am I the thought I see, or am I the seeing?
So the thinking is that as well, isn't it? Like it's a manifestation of the wholeness. Yeah.
Yes. Thinking, manifestation of wholeness. Yeah, he should not be. He can eat any flowers he wants, but lilies are toxic for cats. So.
But thinking happens spontaneously. What's your next thought? It comes up spontaneously. I understand that.
It's only when you're identifying with it that it causes issues.
Well, put a shape and form on it. The label, the name, the word, and the sound of it.
So when you're labeling the thinking, that's when like you're going to be thinking a lot. That's what we do as humans, right? But the problem happens when you're labeling the thinking.
Relating to a person.
Put the word on, take the word to be real. If you're not putting a label on it, what is it? It's just sound, just vibration, without any form, shape or form on it. It's just a movement of energy, just the essence.
Oh yeah.
All sound, all sounds are vibration. Concepts, mental constructs.
Is that in the same sense as, I think when you were saying, you know, the truth will set you free, for me, that resonated in the sense of, like karma and what I had identified that to be, what I had made it out to be, the label that I put that thinking into that, and the realization that if I take that away, freedom.
Yeah.
For,
Yeah, taking the meaning away.
So-called karma is based on the me and the other, duality. There's no me. Can there be another? Can't be another. They recognise that.
Like the thought that is completely neutral or innocent, the sky is blue or the cat is eating clearly, that's not a problem. It doesn't cause any suffering. But when I take it personal, the sky is blue and I want it to be black, or I wanted it to be different, I don't like it this way. Suddenly the relationship is formed, or the cat is eating lilies and I don't want it, or whatever, I'm worried. That relationship with the me naturally creates the reference point, that self-center or the ego. And now that ego is looking at everything from fixed perspective, from the perspective of me. As you said, the meaning, the moment you give meaning, I like it, I don't like it, this is no good, or whatever, that creates the tension, because that excludes half of the universe. The innocent thoughts, or the thoughts, like Bob says, if you don't put words, obviously it's hard to even call it thought, it's just a vibration of energy. But even if the words are put, but they're not personal, they're not relational, they still not binding yet. They kind of define reality, but they don't create suffering. But the moment they relate it, that's it. And that's automatic, because the biology of the organism brings up the natural, the reasoning capacity, natural capacity to judge and evaluate, so that the danger can be avoided. But yeah, as you said, when you know the truth will set you free. So you see the body doing it, but that's not you doing it. The instincts are evaluating and avoiding dangers, but what does it have to do with me as totality? Nothing. I'm just actually seeing what the body is doing. The body is throwing some sort of a survival instinct, or even anxiety or fear or whatever it does, to make the cortisol run through the body, to make fight and flight effect, body going, the blood oxidated going to hands and legs so I can run. Good, wonderful. But that's just a phenomenon happening. It's nothing to do with me as the totality, as the consciousness. I'm free because I know the truth about it. I know I'm not the doer of it. I know it's just spontaneous happening, like the next thought or the next sound that will come up.
And I love what Krishnamurti says, the mind is the me, the mind is the past. And, you know, if you know that sometimes that thought of yourself in your mind is just a memory, and it can only be projected into the past, so reflected on looking into the past or projected into the future, you start to see the thoughts just flowing in a sort of mechanical way. And it's when you have a response to the thoughts flowing in a mechanical way. Sometimes that's a natural response, instinctive, like Kat was saying, but other times it's causing you dis-ease or conflict within yourself. Mm-hmm. And as Kat was also saying, that's because you have a fixed idea about something, you know, and you want that something to be different. And but like the mind is a wonderful instrument, but when it causes you pain, it's because you're stuck on one particular response to something that's happening. And sometimes, like Kat said, that's appropriate, you know, because it might save the cat from being poisoned. But other times when it's just a mental construct and you're having a response that causes you pain, have a look at who that pain is being caused to. And that's the image you have about yourself, which is just another thought in your mind. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it is a great invitation to question. Any sort of discomfort or resistance is almost as if consciousness is calling you, come on, have a look.
Because everything's an opportunity to watch the mind, yeah.
Let it out.
Yes.
I think on the spiritual path that I've sort of been on,
spoke about it last week about finding different things and always searching, for something else, and there's nothing to search for it at all. Since sort of a friend sort of introduced me to non-duality, these ideas, it all rings really true, and I believe it, and I believe this is where I'm supposed to be, but I'm scared because it feels a bit isolating, and because I have to go back out, in the world. I don't even know how to express. It just feels like I'm living in a different way, or I'm thinking in a different way, and I'm surrounded by all these aliens, and this morning I was just sharing before, I woke up, I haven't been sleeping very well, and I wasn't sure I was going to come, and I just sort of got in the car, and it was just, I just got here, and it just felt right, and I felt, and even this sort of breaking down, or whatever you want to label it, feels right. It's just, I think somebody else has said, it's sort of, there is that resistance, I sort of want to, and I've done that a lot in the different things that I've explored, is, I feel like I get, so close to what feels true, and then it gets so painful that I just back away and try and pretend that, oh no, I'm okay with just, living out with the others, but then it doesn't feel true either, and it's really confusing, and I don't know, I guess that's sort of just where I'm at the moment.
So it seems real, and you believe it to be so? Say it seems real and you don't believe it, know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What brought that emotion in your body? Was it? See, thought, feeling, and emotion are all one and the same things. So a thought might come up, you mightn't even know what it is, but it might be about a past event or whatever's happening to you, or a feeling or a sensation. And build up, and it cause the feeling. The feeling can be called sadness, happiness, or whatever feeling it causes. That builds up and will become the tears, and the emotion comes out. It's all one essence, subtle. So don't be ashamed of your tears or anything like that. Let it out. But don't believe that you know it. You do know it. Know the truth, not believe. The belief is putting in some mental concept. But you are that already. That's enable you to take that breath. It's enable those tears to come in. Enable that feeling to come up in you. Move your heart or the sensation within you. Relax.
Just say something on that. Can totally relate. Totally relate. It doesn't always have to be this way. It doesn't. But it was for me. Clearly is for you. Okay? This is about shedding. Non-duality is about shedding, dismantling, letting go, seeing the truth. Yeah? And often we come to non-duality, after having spent a lot of time looking and being invested in other paths, other ways, other things, whatever that may be. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah? And then we kind of arrive here and we hear the truth and all that gets challenged, what we've been doing, and something resonates in us that somehow knows this is it. Okay? Now, then we try and understand what it is with the head, and we can't. We can't. We really can't, yeah. So it's trusting. This morning you trusted that. You weren't, your head was going, will I, won't I? Yeah. But you were moved to come here. Yeah. So I'd say trust that. Really, really trust that. Now, I'm feeling isolated, what you said. Yeah. This that we're being asked to look at, this form of self-inquiry, is quite isolating because it requires nobody else. Literally, nobody else. Yeah. Thank God these groups get held 3 times a week so that at least people can turn up here, yeah, and have this kind of dialogue. Yeah. So the closer you get to this, the more alone you're going to feel. Sorry to tell you that, but you are. You are, because it's an interpersonal look, or it's a. You have to do it, so it requires looking here, if you like, wherever here is. But it does, and it takes you to do it. So this is really about having. You've got to look for yourself, and there's a huge difference between really, really looking, I mean really looking, as opposed to thinking you're looking. A massive difference. That pain or that fear that was discussed earlier, yeah. In my experience, the closer I got to, I'm going to call it, the closer I got to it, the more pain I felt, the more isolated I felt. Yeah. And there's a couple of ways you could look at that, but one way to look at that is the closer you get to love, the more profound the separation feels. Because you're acutely more aware of this seeming separation. And it can throw you into a state like that. Totally can. Did me. Totally did. Yeah. I was completely isolated in the end. Completely isolated. And it doesn't have to be this way, but I'm just kind of painting a picture. I was so isolated. I wasn't working, wasn't seeing anyone, had no one dropping around. My phone wasn't ringing. Nada, nothing. Zip. So I was just sitting, literally just on my own. But so earnestly looking, just looking, just, you know, and not with that. Not with that. It's a big difference. You know, like, even if I ask people in the room to, I don't know, look at that painting on the wall to the left, it doesn't require thinking to do that. It's just looking. You don't have to think, okay, well, now I'm going to shift my eyes and turn my head at the same time over to that and then focus on that. That doesn't occur. There's literally just looking, yeah. So it can get a bit tight. It can. But all I would say is absolutely trust that intuition that's going on in you that is saying this is truth or this is it. Even if you can't understand it, which you never will, by the way. It's not possible to understand with that. It's not. We try to for a while until in the end you got to put it down. That sense organ, thought, is useless. In the end, it's totally useless. But it gets used for a while. Yeah. And that fear thing that you brought up, Michael. What does fear most? Fear. That's the cycle. That's what keeps it there. Literally, that's what keeps that thought, that whole thought process going. Fear hates fear. It does. But that all comes about because we label it. What you were saying. It's because we're labelling it. And then as soon as we label it, yeah, we connect it with past experiences that we've had, that we've also labelled fear. Then that comes up in the body and vibrates in the body and feels similar or the same as all the other experiences that we've had in the past. So that vibration comes up and we go, oh yeah, that's fear. What if we didn't label it? Like, and it's not even that you've got a choice in whether you label it or don't label it. You really don't. Yeah? But seeing that this me is nothing but a construct of word. Just word. Which manifests into thoughts, but it's word. It's all word. Me is nothing but word. My idea of the world is nothing but word. Nothing but that, word. And then the problem is we take the word to be the actual thing. And the word's only ever a description. It's never the actual thing. But because of all our past experiences, when we label, it manifests here. You know, yep, I'm feeling that again.
Yeah. So there's a comfort with the familiarity of it as well. There's a comfort, so it's letting go and going into the unknown.
Yeah, but
So unknown.
I know, Mike, but you can't do that. You can't let go. You can't hang on. You can't do anything. Yeah. There's no doer involved in seeing or knowing. There's no doer involved in that. And what we're asked to do here is to investigate this so-called individual, this so-called me. Investigate that and see what it actually is. Literally, see what it actually is. Any conflict that we've got going on with ourself and the world, or ourself and somebody else, or even ourself and self. It sounds like there's two selves. Yeah. Any conflict that we've got going on is nothing but thoughts in conflict with thoughts. Full stop. That needs to be seen. And only you can see that for yourself by looking, and not that there's a you that can see that. Okay? So anything I'm saying is just a pointer, really. Yeah. That's all that ever happens. We believe we're in a relationship with somebody. We're not. We're so not. For a couple of reasons. Number one, we can't be in a relationship with somebody because there's not two. So that's number one. Yep. And number two, the relationship that we believe we're having with somebody else is a relationship that we're having with what we think of them. It's got nothing to do with them. Zero, nada. It's got nothing to do with them. The real relationship is when there's no me, there's no you, and we are one.
That's it.
And you could hardly call that a relationship. Yeah? And that's what Bob says at the beginning of the group sometimes. I'm not talking to any mind. I'm not talking to anybody. Anyone. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm speaking to that I am that I am. Or I'm speaking to that presence, or that knowing, that intuition that I am. It's the same thing. There's not two of them. There's not a presence happening there and a presence happening here. It's the same presence. And the only thing that splits it up or divides it is thought. That just thought. And as was pointed out earlier, Michelle, we don't have any control over it. You have no control over thought. Are you kidding me? No, I'm not. We literally have no control over it. It just happens. But then we take responsibility for it. We say, yeah, this is my thinking. I shouldn't be thinking this. I've got to change the way I think. Yeah, okay, if you're on the personal self-development path, knock yourself out. Go for it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and And look, and in truth, there's nothing wrong with that either. Because that would be, again, just what's happening. Yeah? So that there's actually nothing happening. We believe there's something happening. Not know. We believe there's something happening. We believe there's a me that gets affected by. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. There's a belief that there's a me here, and that me sees, me hears, tastes, touch, smells, and thinks. The sixth sense, thinking. So this is not about me trying to gain something. Yeah. It's not. It's so counterintuitive, this. Yeah, it's the complete... I used to say a lot, it's a 180 to what we think we should be doing. It's a complete... it really is a complete 180.
It's a negation.
Yeah. So it's coming to... This thing that's been called awakening is coming to see what you're not.
That's right.
Not trying to get something from what you're not. It'll never happen. That'd be like your dream character in your dream at night when it's asleep, going to satsangs and reading this book and this teacher and doing all this stuff. Why? Because it wants to experience the dream, your dream character I'm talking about when you're asleep and dreaming. Okay? That dream character wants to experience what it's like to be awake in the morning. Can it? As soon as you wake up, it's gone. You get that?
Yeah.
As soon as you wake up, it's gone. But for that so-called awakening to happen, you've got to see it's a fucking dream. You've got to see that it just happens just like in your dream at night when you're sleeping. You have no control over the content in that dream. Zip. You have no control over the content in this so-called waking dream. Zip. But you've got to see that. And in the seeing of it, it starts to lose its grip. And there's a stirring, if you like, that starts to happen. Like there's a stirring that happens when you are asleep on your bed at night. There is, if you're really attentive, there is a stirring that happens as you wake up. Even before your eyes open, there's a stirring that happens. It's the same. So it's just recognizing or seeing for yourself what is really actually happening in truth. Like, tackle it logically. Logically. Who would I be if I got struck with amnesia? All gone. Total history, gone, wiped, didn't know my name, nothing. Who would I be then? Would I be Terry? Would I have a history? No, because that's all wiped. Would I even be Terry? I wouldn't remember my name. I wouldn't know anything. Yet, there'd still be an aliveness here. You couldn't deny that. There'd still be sitting. There'd still be an aliveness. There'd still be awareness. There'd still be seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. That would all be going on with the absence of memory. And in the absence of memory, Terry disappears. So what's Terry? What's Terry? Thoughts, memory, conditioning. Simply that. And then we bring that idea, all those thoughts and that conditioning into the present and go, oh, this is me. Fuck, it's so not. It's so not. And you have no control over all those thoughts that come up and trickle through whatever it is that's going on, even what you experienced earlier, Felicity. All of it, you've no control over that. That just happened. I'll bet if you had some sort of control, being a me, I'll bet if you had some sort of control, you'd like to have switched that off in public. Yeah? Great that you didn't, by the way. Yeah. See, it just, all of this stuff just happens. It all just happens. And it's recognising that, seeing that. And if you can see it, you can't be it. Do you understand? If you can be aware of it, you can't be it. So that the stance or the abiding or the place to be, if you like, which you always are, by the way, is observing. Observing, just watching. Coming to see that all just happens, it all floats through, because your whole me is dependent on that, whatever it is that floats through. If you watch that earnestly enough, you'll see that your me is in there. And whereas at the moment we think there's a me here that gets affected by what goes on in here. Rubbish. That's not true. It's totally not true.
And it's counterintuitive to even try and understand all of this.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, but you.
Try and think about what it's
Yeah, but you can't. Yes, but you can. But you are aware, and you can see. Correct? Okay. So you can see my hand. Yeah. So there's a subject there and an object here, and you know you're not that. Correct? Okay. It's the same with what goes on here. If you can be aware of it, it cannot be you. Cannot. Do you understand? Yeah. And that is aware of all this that's going on, we've never, ever given it any attention. We've just assumed it's me. And it's not.
So it's a separation in a way from that. You know, I feel like I'm mixing other ideas from
That's okay.
before, but you know, like that human experience sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that's okay. But keep it really, really simple. This is just about observing. Coming to see what you're not. Literally. Coming to see what you're not. And when that's profoundly seen, it drops. It drops. Then, and all the torment and all the suffering and all the fear drops. Why? Because it's all stuff from the past. There's no relevance to presence at all. Zip. So it's seeing it, literally seeing it. It's that simple. It's not. This is so not complicated.
What's that analogy that you used the last time I was here? Kat, you used a beautiful analogy that stayed with me, and it's like you can't unhear it, and it was to do with just nature and the moon, and how it didn't ask. That was beautifully. Would you be able to just?
Well, it was Bob's really originally. He says that the nature didn't design a self-center or the ego for itself. So, can you elaborate on that, Bob?
No, you were asked the question.
Yes, so it's basically, well, our natural state is us in nature. We are the nature. We are not separated or isolated from the nature. This is our true nature, to be like nature. And us in nature, nothing, like the tree doesn't have self-identity. It doesn't have preferences, what the weather is going to be like. The moon doesn't ask, or the planets or the suns. They are not planning the trajectory. Like the sun is not saying in 12 hours I'm going to be hanging on the other side of the earth. They don't do it. It's just the natural intelligence that rolls them over and does everything. And the same way we function. And I was actually going to add what Terry was saying. This was beautiful, by the way, but there is a thing that I wanted to highlight. That sense of isolation doesn't have to be a part of the process, because that is not part of awakening. That is part of actually dancing of the ego. The ego hanging by the skin of a teeth to want to exist, like the fear or anxiety or loneliness or whatever the projection is always related to the me, to the story about me. If there is nobody home, who is to be isolated? Who is to be lonely or fearful? If there is just plain emptiness, all-inclusive emptiness, just like in nature, the space doesn't say that I don't want that planet, or I don't want that person, or I don't want anything. It doesn't. It all embraces and includes everything. Isolation also, resistance also, fear also. So our true nature is that place of rest, that place in which there is no resistance towards anything, even resistance. So if the wave of resistance comes on the surface of the water, it is part of the appearance of the Maya, of the form. But we stay as the emptiness. And again, process of discarding, as Terry was saying, is a pointer. That's not the reality. That's not the truth. It's not that I am the emptiness and not the form, because that's duality. I'm everything. Emptiness is the form. Emptiness vibrates and becomes a form. The air vibrates and becomes the sound. The light, the energy becomes a light, the microwave, the other waves, the subatomic particles dancing very fast and creating matter. So I am the body, and I am every other body, and I'm every other thought, and all of it. But the not this pointer, the neti, the discarding pointer, is just for the purpose of investigation. And is very helpful. It usually, as Terry says, Nisargadatta said it in the beautiful words, the perceivable and conceivable are not you. Nothing that can be conceived or perceived, thought of or observed, couldn't be the ultimate seer or observer. But as Bob mentioned earlier, there is no seer and a seen. It's just a seeing. There's not me observing this. Okay, this is me, this is observing this. So this it's not me, but I am still here. No, it's just seeing. And the content of the seeing is like in nature, the content of the space is the planets, the trees, the animals, the people, the thoughts, the resistances. They're all content of space. The content of seeing are object. The content of hearing are sounds. The content of thinking are mental images and thoughts. And I am the space, the whole space-like awareness, filtered by the body as a space of seeing, space of hearing, space of thinking. Like Bob was saying, stay utterly awake with 5 senses wide open, and then you are seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Not someone who does it. And now I'm doing the smelling, so I'm not the smell, I'm the smeller. No, I'm just the process, the space, filtered by the senses. I'm the space of thinking, and I allow every thought, including the uncomfortable one, and just treating them like the clouds on the sky. And if the following of the thought happens, that is also allowed. On the deepest level, nothing is ever resisted. Everything is allowed, including egos, including suffering. That's the beauty of it. It is always stepping back into the place when everything is eternally okay. Even if this body is crying and screaming out of pain, I am beyond that, allowing this body to scream in pain. That's the freedom. When I don't want anything to be different than it is, because that's how this moment was designed and expressed by nature, and I am that nature. If I'm resisting this moment, I'm dreaming to be something else than the nature. If I am the nature and I've created it the way it is, how could I resist it? So if there is a resistance, it means subtly I, as a nature, dream to be opposite or separate. And that's how the dream comes about. The totality cannot experience itself unless it dreams itself to be the other. It dreams itself a body, it dreams itself a world, it dreams itself a boundary between the two. So that's a dream, and that dream is beautiful. It is to be appreciated, but knowing the truth will set us free, and then the dream can be enjoyed. The dream doesn't need to be resisted, even if the pain happens, because it will. It will. Ask Bob, he's got almost 4 years of living, abiding in a state of being that nature. And he had a hip replacement last year. And his knees are packing up. He's taking painkillers if necessary. The pain is inevitable, because this is a part of duality. There is pleasure and pain, day and night, dark and white, me and the other. Otherwise, there would be nothing. If there wouldn't be experience of sickness, who would know what health is? If there wouldn't be an experience of pain, who would know the pleasure? That always in that dream, everything is known from its opposite. And it will continue this way. It's just knowing that this is how it plays out and allowing it to play as it wish. And just being that space of allowing. And it's not an action of allowing, because there is no action required. It's just, yeah, like Terry was saying, just looking, just noticing, knowing. They call it cognizing emptiness. The space with the capacity of knowing, being knowing and loving to be. That's what Bob quotes Satchitananda. And everyone has that already, because everyone is already existing and is already conscious of its own existence. So it is really about just coming back to that place in which, okay, that's the content. And I'm that content too, but there is nothing to actually add to it. There is nothing to oppose, or if the opposition happens, it's nothing to do about anything. The space does not do anything. And I am the space, so what am I going to do? Nothing. Not even allow or discard, nothing. Ultimately, my nature is to just be the nature. That's not even easy. That's inevitable.
Unmodified.
Yeah.
Uncorrected.
Yeah. That's Bob's. That's one of my favorite pointers, which Bob used to highlight. Leave everything as it is. Unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Just hands off, don't touch it. Just leave it as it is. It will change. The only way to alter or modify or correct it is by the thinking, by adding label or judging it or trying to resist it or push it. This is all imaginary. Leaving it as it is, including the resistance, and just see how it changes, because nothing stays still in that appearance. And it doesn't have to be the experience of intense isolation. I mean, in my case, it was similar to Terry. The suffering was actually growing, and the investigation was getting frustrating. And for a lot of people, suffering is actually an invitation to question things. And suffering, well, the more acute, the more kind of effective. But for many, many other people, just simple sense of discontentment is enough. It doesn't have to be a suicidal depression. It doesn't have to be a sense of loss, because that discontentment, that, well, it's not quite it yet, that's already enough to question. Because the ego that's having a feeling that I'm separate or isolate, I'm not a totality, I'm anything less than totality. It doesn't have to be suffering. I can be the brightest, the smartest, the prettiest, the healthiest, the greatest, the richest, and that sense of discontentment will still be there, because, oh, it's not going to last. So coming back to that basic sense of discontentment, or that sense of void, that there's something lacking, something missing, that is actually enough to successfully see through that resistance. We don't need to wait for the, yeah, well, it happens as it happens. The truth is, nobody has the saying. It's just, every story is different. For some people, suffering is inevitable. For other people, it's just like it happened to a lot of others, you know, the event, putting a shoe on, and suddenly the consciousness opens up, and a sense of separation is seen for what it is. It's just seen as a pattern that is disappearing, dissolving. And then also throughout the day, how often we actually experience the natural state. And we don't even notice it, because it is not memorized by the mind, because the mind doesn't have the, you know, if it's nothing, how it could be memorized? It doesn't have a symbol for it to actually store it in the memory. But these moments when nothing is wrong, these moments when we just walk down the road and the leaves are dancing in the air and the reflection of the sun or the bird, and nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. There is no one who would have to say that, oh yeah, but you know, it should be warmer, or it should be. No, it's nothing wrong. That's the natural state. Because we often look for something bigger or greater. We often look that, oh no, awakening is going to be some great fireworks or whatever, it's a sense of bliss or orgasm and it's going to last forever. No, it's a natural state. I didn't see any trees or planets orgasming in the eternity. They just are. The simplicity of being. And again, even the blissful state is known from its opposite. If there was an eternal bliss, and there are quite a big evidence around the certain drug abuse, like a DMT or something, that causes the serotonin shock, and it literally kills the experiencer. Because if you get too much of a bliss for too long of a time, the hardware will just shut down. So imagining and experiencing the eternal bliss, if it doesn't kill you, it will very, very easily just deselect it out of the conscious awareness. It's just like a background smell of mold or whatever. After an hour, you can't smell it. It's deselected. Or if you have the red-colored glasses, after a week, you not see it because the brain is recalculating everything. So eternal bliss is a myth. It's a nice kind of a teaser to get people to investigate, but it's not going to happen. The bliss is like when you, Bob, say, when you wake up in the morning and you say you had blissful sleep. What does it mean? Did you orgasm all night? No, it's just the peace, just the sense of ease and peace and naturalness. So if anyone is looking for ecstatic experiences, well, there are plenty of possibilities. There are plenty of breathing exercises that can give you a temporary bliss, or kundalini exercises. But the natural state is not a state of eternal bliss. It is a peaceful, it's a non-resistance. And it is beautiful, and it is totally lovable, and it is totally all-inclusive, and it's totally nothing wrong in it. And because we all had an experience of that contraction of that ego, we're going to value it above everything else. Because by remembering the contraction and the ego and the suffering, that becomes prominent. That's why the cats or dogs or trees, they don't really value their own natural state of awakening, because state of awakening is state of freedom from imagining of being separate. I didn't see the cats imagining to be a person and taking offense or doing any of it. They don't really have that frontal lobe and that default mode network developed in their brains, so they can't do it. But they don't appreciate the sense of freedom. They take it for granted.
So they're always living in wholeness.
In a wholeness, in the present moment, absolutely. Look how now the cat is sleeping there, but he's totally alert. One thing and he will jump. He's got even the hair on his fur. They have the motion detectors. So he's totally in a meditative state, one could say, where all senses are wide open. And he's filtering in a real time, in that timeless now, whatever's happening. And not having a story that things should be different.
So we're more complex.
Yes.
Our brains are more complex, so we can. Don't put the cat.
Sorry. Yeah,
So our brains can have a concept of self, and that's what causes separation. That's right.
That's the original cause. And without that, there wouldn't be an awakening.
And as Nisargadatta says, nothing can trouble you except in your own imagination.
Yeah.
We have the capacity of reasoning, which is more developed than it is in other animals, birds, or anything. Yeah.
So it is. I mean, our ability to think and is it primarily for language?
Yes.
To be able to speak and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
One could say yes. And also, the biology of the body, that we have hands that can grab things and plan. It's an amazing invention of evolution. If you look from the perspective of the whole planet, we outnumbered almost all except of bacteria, perhaps.
So we're just ironing out a few kind of faults or flaws with it at the moment, maybe evolutionary wise.
Yeah, it backfires. But the judgment that anything is good or bad comes only from that conceptualizing. Like the moon or the stars or the galaxies, they have no concept that there is anything wrong with humans wiping off other animals or birds or insects or...
And whatever we think, all is well. So you could have a story that everything's an absolute nightmare, but actually all is well.
Yeah.
Same as in the dream, you know, in the night dream you can go through the war or you can, you know, wipe off the civilizations. And when you wake up, what happens? It's not... And this is not to say that we should not be looking after the environment or trying to do, you know, we have no saying. Some people will be moved to do something about it and they will move it and they will do it. The ecological movements are also part of the reasoning capacity. It is all self-organizing and resolving itself. And, you know, the part of the suffering coming with the growing amount of anxiety is also part of the heart opening when it hits the wall. So it is, in a bigger picture, everything gets resolved. Like Bob often says, they were ice ages before. They were creatures wiped off the face of planet. They were climate changes, many, many of them. And they were also responses from the animals hiding or migrating or evolutionary developing some sort of a hibernation capacities or whatever. And now they are also, everything is resolving itself. It's just not interfering and just being amazed with the beauty of it, with the intelligence of it.
But do you think humanity is moving towards this awareness of, you know, being, who knows?
You see how subtly
Doesn't
and
really
how quickly you go to the imagination back
Sorry,
again.
I want to go back in there and figure it out.
That's beautiful. That's part of it. That's, yeah.
You'll never find the answer in the mind.
Never.
When you
Nature.
come out with it, you'll laugh at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful dream. This was one of the last dreams that I had to give up, you know, the idea that there is an evolution of consciousness. And then the tendency is for people to get more and more awake and aware. What a beautiful dream. But it is nothing but the dream, because the reality is right now, in this moment. The story about future is not the reality.
Okay, time's caught up with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.